Time is 10:09. I call this Committee of Community Development and Housing to order. Clerk, will you call the roll?
As a reminder to all in attendance, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the county's YouTube page. Calling the roll for Mr. Hauser.
Here.
Mr. Jones. Here. Mr. Kelly.
Here.
Mr. Schlepper.
Here.
Ms. Simon.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Ask for approval of the September 15th meeting minutes.
Move to adopt.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Meeting minutes have been approved. Clerk, will you call the first item?
Resolution 2025-0273, awarding a total sum not to exceed $10,000 to Mayor Via Foundation for the purchase and renovation of 3212 Fulton Road from the District 3 ARPA Community Grant Fund.
Hi everyone, my name is Patrick Meinenbauer from the Mayhor Via Foundation. So happy to be here, honored to be here with you today. The Mayhor Via Foundation does work in Cleveland, the Dominican Republic, and India. In Cleveland, we go by the name One Hope NEO. We operate right across from St. Rocco's on Fulton Road. And our mission started about 12 years ago as a church outreach of St. Ambrose in Brunswick. And about 6 years ago during COVID, we asked community members, what else can we do? There was a great need in that area, especially related to housing and education and employment. And what we heard was really three things. We need support meeting basic needs. We need to build up the next generation of leaders. And then we need it to be easier to connect people to organizations and resources. And from that, One Hope NEO really kicked off, moving from doing food around the holidays to more substantial support on an annual basis. 2 years ago, we bought the building at across from St. Rocco's, which was the old Repepi Funeral Home, and we've renovated that and now offer pretty comprehensive support to improve the quality of community members' lives. So in 2025, we've supported probably about 10 to 12,000 people directly, whether that's through our monthly food distribution for about 500 families, including 100 home deliveries to seniors and homebound individuals. We do intakes with 250 families this year to understand what their needs are and how both through ourselves and our partners we can address those needs. And many other services, whether it's fun things like block club parties or barbecues, to more substance services that help address immediate needs. Today, Jobs and Family Services is there every Monday. They provide support for about 30 people each week. Ohio Guidestone does mental and behavioral health services every other Tuesday and clinical exams, or intakes, I should say. Metro Health provides different healthcare services. Chase Bank provides financial literacy, and a host of other partners provide services all under one roof. Our goal really is that when you come to One Hope, you can get help with any of the services that you'd need in one location, making it easier for you to improve the quality of your lives and your families. So the hope for the ARPA dollars is really to expand these efforts out. So I mentioned before, 2 years ago, we were working in the Lynn Omni building on Fulton, right down the street from our current office, and we quickly expanded past the capacity there. At One Hope today, we have 2 large rooms. We've got a bunch of space outside, but we have about 4 or 5 different activities or programs on a daily basis. And so we plan to acquire the building next to us, which is what's in the resolution. That space will be used for 2 primary purposes. The upstairs will become another affordable housing property. We have 6 units today. This will get us to 7. We hope to be at 10 by the end of the year or early next year. The downstairs of that space will turn into more of a community space. At our current location, we have about 300 to 500 people a week come in for different programming. We're just out of space, and it's also the space is a little bit loud. We plan to move a lot of the fun activities to the new location next door and do a lot of the programming type events, things like the Chase Bank, Jobs and Family Services, et cetera, at our current location. So that's currently our plan. We've got a lot of activity. We'd certainly love for you all to join. Councilwoman Conwell and Councilman Sweeney have both been to One Hope. We'd invite anyone else to come in. Our doors are always open. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilman Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning.
Morning.
So I'm looking at the total budget of the project. It's showing $250,000, of which looks like $175,000 of that is already committed and another $75,000 anticipated. What is that anticipation?
So we are financially solvent as an organization. So we work for the properties we currently have, both our location that we offer services out of, as well as the different housing properties. We work with the Cuyahoga Land Bank as well as donors to help provide for those properties. We've done similar work there. So it's a private sale that we'll be purchasing it for, but both through our current finances and then additional donor contributions, we'll be able to fund the space. We actually already have the funds necessary to acquire it. It's all for the renovations and things of that nature.
Okay, then plus the $10,000 from
Correct.
this ask, correct?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Looks like I don't see any other questions. I don't have any as well. We're familiar with the great work you guys are doing, and I'm happy to see you guys will be expanding and renovating. So if I don't see any questions, I do know, because this is ARPA money, that it has to go 3 readings. And so we can keep you updated on when you guys can expect to receive this allocation. But other than that, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you all.
Clerk, will you call the next item?
We'll need a
Mr. Chairman,
motion
Sorry.
to,
move forward.
I'd make a motion to move this forward to full council for 3 readings.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion has been approved.
Resolution 2025-0275, awarding a total sum not to exceed $5,000 to the Friends of the Hen Mansion Incorporated for the repair of the Hen Mansion's chimneys project from the District 11 ARPA Community Grant Fund.
Good morning, Council. How are you? It's kind of odd being on this side of the microphone. In the application, I
Excuse
pretty
me,
much
Ms.
went over.
Mancuso, can you state your
Oh,
name
I'm
for the
sorry.
record?
See, I'm out of practice. Charlene Mancuso. I'm the board president for the Friends of the Hen Mansion. As is in the application that we wrote for you, the mansion is 100 years old. It is a 9,500 square foot building owned by the city of Euclid, was maintained by the city of Euclid when it was turned over in the late 50s. Needed a lot of work. A group of residents, far smarter than me, got together and said, because they were going to tear the building down, because there was just too much to maintain. A group of Euclid residents got together and said, nope, you own it, we'll maintain it. That has gone on for the past 20-some years. However, after COVID, there was a lack of people who really wanted to participate on the board any longer. So maintaining the building kind of took a back seat to things. Having finished my tour on council, my mayor and I discussed, and I said, let me go do this. And we diligently found people who wanted to be on a board because they had the skill set, not just to say, I sit on a board. Those people have come together, and as it states in the application, we put together an assessment after about 9.5 months of what the house needs. And that's not talking about curtains and rugs and all that. There's some major things going on. The first and the most important was getting our 3 chimneys, 2 of which are functional, 1 has been sealed off, taken care of. All the tuck pointing that goes around, I can say the words, I can't tell you what it all means. I'm a nurse, so I'm not a roof person. We just had that construction begin on Monday, so this is very timely. And the gentleman who is doing the work is one of maybe 3 in Northeast Ohio who works on buildings that are 100 years old, residential buildings. So you have to wait for them. So when he said go, we said, oh, okay. He is donating to us his services to then further assess our slate roof. So the fact that we are paying him for this project, which is very much needed, and I stopped to say hello to him this morning because we're so glad he's finally doing it before the winter hits. But he says, I do slate roofs. He goes, let me do an assessment, which we know is another $3,000 to $4,000 for somebody to come in and do it. So this has double pleasure for all of us to get this taken care of. I know I also sent to each of you all the capital projects that we're trying to do. I think the very next one that we will do will be, we have a sunroom that has a crack going through it from north to south. And right now it's stable, but as we all know, it's not going to stay that way. So that'll be our next one, and that'll be a huge project, at bringing civil engineering, that type of thing. But we are very, very fortunate to have a county councilwoman who believes in what we're doing there. The HEN has provided, since COVID, and a new board. All this summer, we were the place for the summer students to have their reading programs, because we're right in the middle of Sims Park. So they could go out for a little while, come back in, have a reading program. So there's a lot of education. The house is there for that piece of it, which I would like to expand into our Euclid school system more. But we had to have the bodies and the processes in place. So again, in order to do that and make it safe, we have to do these kind of projects. So again, I thank you all for allowing us to do this, and we'll make you proud. Any questions?
Good morning. And
Good morning.
through the chair. I just wanted to say thank you for the work that you're doing. Cleveland has not such a great track record when it comes to, taking care of our historic properties. Millionaire's Row being, one such example. So I'm always excited to see these types of historic preservation projects. We need more of this to be done. I think about some of the patchwork of incredible properties, and this is one such space, especially, being adjacent to Sims Park and the beaches and those types of pieces. So I'm very happy to support this. Thank you for your work with this. This is just one incredible space that we need to continue to preserve, as well as many, many others. So again, thank you, and thank your board as well.
Thank you. Anything else?
I just had one question. Is there a long-term plan for the sustainability of the building?
The mission of the board has been, and will continue to be, the restoration, the maintenance, and the stabilization. I have to say, I was a bit surprised when I came in to take over the board, how much is put on the back burner, because you just don't have the money to do it. So there are lots of great plans. Our big thing now is the operations are supported by us renting the house out for, baby showers, weddings, and we do it at a very, very modest rate. Because one of the things I believe in sincerely, this is in Euclid, and we have Euclid residents who would love to use it. We also finally are getting outside residents. But we wanted to meet the population where they were economically. So it's very moderately priced, and we want to keep it that way. But that kind of cuts back on your ability for funding. So you have to put on a different hat and go out and raise some money. So that's what we're doing. This is the first project, though. I'm feeling much better that he's on the roof today, I got to tell you.
Councilwoman?
Thank you so much to the chair, to the council president, former and now new role. I just want everybody to know that if you haven't been there, Hen Mansion is an extraordinary historic site in the city of Euclid, on the lake, close to the boardwalk that the county invested in, state invested in. It's a beautiful transformation. And if you haven't been there, I really encourage you to see this, because everybody, I don't think everybody knows the jewel Euclid is and has with Lake Erie right there. There's a beach, there's a boardwalk. There was Shakespeare in the Park behind some.
Another fundraiser.
That was a fundraiser behind the mansion over the summer. And it's just such a beautiful place that I don't think everybody knows is there. And, before I was elected in 2010, I didn't know. And it's a shame, because it's close by. Everybody can get there and within 15 minutes right there without a traffic hazard downtown. So I hope you support this. I think it will serve the city proud, but also the county. Thanks.
Thank you.
I am learning about it for the first time as well. Is it open to the public? Is there a fee? Tell us a little bit about what it takes.
Great question, great question. The other arm that we're looking at is to do formal tours. And we have some of our volunteers who are also volunteers for Lakeview Cemetery that does it very well. So we're kind of usurping a little bit of their expertise to help us. We have done tours over the years. I am of a mindset, though, it should be the same kind of tour for everybody. And there's tours for kids, and there's tours for, adults, and there's tours for industry. But we are well on our way to that. And again, another reason why I have to get some of this stuff stabilized so you can bring people in. And I am more than willing, if anybody has and wants to come tour, I will personally tour you of the house. It is magnificent. It really is. And we just want to keep it that way. And I think over the last probably 24 months, people are learning we're not closed, and we're not just, we have people that would go through the park and say, does anybody live there? No. They just didn't know, and they lived in Euclid. That's not the case anymore. So anytime anybody wants to come, call Sunny. She'll give you my card. I'll tour you myself. You'll love it, and you'll be back.
Thank you, Ms. Mancuso.
Thank you. Well, it sounds like this allocation is timely, and you guys definitely have my support. So if there's no further discussion, I'd like to move for a motion to forward this item to the next council meeting for second reading. As you know, because these are ARPA money, they will have to go 3 full readings.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. Clerk, will you call the next item?
Resolution 2025-0284, authorizing a tax certificate sale, purchase revenue generating agreement with NAR Solutions Incorporated, doing business as NAR Ohio LLC, in the amount not to exceed $40 million for the sale of tax lien certificates for the period November 1st, 2025 through November 30th, 2027.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of council. My name is Brad Cromus, and I serve as Cuyahoga County Treasurer. It's a pleasure to be here with you this morning. We've prepared a little presentation to share a little bit about what tax lien sales are, tax lien certificate sales, just to kind of refresh everybody's memory, and then also to walk through what our plans are for conducting a sale this year as well. So I believe that's going to be up here. There we go. Great. Just some terms of art to make sure everyone kind of understands the language that's used. A tax lien is placed on a property with a certified tax delinquency, and that's the mechanism by which we can then enforce collection efforts on that delinquency, whether it's by foreclosure or some other means. So the tax lien itself is something that exists whenever a property is certified as tax delinquent. That certified tax delinquency happens when a property has gone a full collection cycle with unpaid taxes. That's a little more than a year, roughly that. So that just so we have definitional terms in mind for that. A tax lien certificate then is a document that we issue when we conduct a tax lien certificate sale that provides the bearer the right to collect those delinquent taxes standing in the shoes of the county. And they can then also collect fees and interest charges related to the effort to collect those funds attendant to their work. A tax lien certificate sale is the process that we use to conduct getting the tax lien certificate from the county's hand to the buyer, and they're authorized by Ohio law. So just again, some baseline information there. Have we done these before in Cuyahoga County? Yes, the answer is yes. Tax liens have been authorized, tax lien sales have been authorized by statute in Ohio since 1997. Cuyahoga County conducted its first tax lien sale in 1998, so following shortly on the heels thereafter. The initial sales were auction style, and in an auction style sale, there's 2 different kinds of sales in the state statutes, auction style and a negotiated sale. In an auction style sale, it's just what it sounds like. We start with the 18% maximum, and then bidders bid down the interest rate to a certain percentage, and then whoever the lowest bidder is gets to the right then to collect taxes and earn those certificates. The issue with those is that you don't have a lot of control over who your bidders are. You do end up with potential situations where folks buy a portfolio and then are spinning off properties they might not want that they had to bid on as a result of the auction sale into the hands of a third party. That creates some spin-off effects that are negative for our communities. So we eventually moved in the direction of doing negotiated sales. And a negotiated sale, again, it's what it sounds like. It's a contractual arrangement. We do a bidding process. The county selects a bidder based on a number of different criteria, and then we have just one partner. So we have more control over who the partners are, more control over what is actually in the sale bucket to begin with. And so, that is the preferred methodology for our county and for others around the state at this point. So our most recent tax certificate sale was held in 2018, 2019. We paused them as a result of COVID and haven't restarted them since. They, in 2018, 2019, sold 819 parcel certificates on 819 parcels and 1,246 parcels in 18 and 19. And I pause here to make sure that I'm being specific about using the word certificate, because I want to be clear that we're not selling the underlying property in a tax lien certificate sale. That is a common point of confusion. It's just the right to collect those delinquent taxes. So that's something that we're going to be communicating effectively to our taxpayers and making sure that they understand as we go through this process. But of those, that sale was informed by the work of a number of community organizations, primary among those being VAPAC, the Vacant and Abandoned Property Action Council. We took a lot of recommendations from them in 2015 based on some negative externalities that had happened in prior sales and incorporated those into the bid documents in 2018, 2019. The committee there, the council feels that that was a very effective and productive effort. Just to give you a flavor of that, of the parcels I mentioned, we only had at the end of 2023, which was the close of our collection period, 31 that remained unpaid and another 16 that were actually forfeited to the state. So very successful in terms of helping our taxpayers remediate that delinquency, stay in their properties, and catch up. So that's what we did then. Why we're doing them again now, again, I mentioned that we posed 2020 forward. They are a very effective tool for us, and they are, in fact, just a tool in the toolbox. So our delinquent collection mechanisms are somewhat limited under statute. Really, we have two primary methodologies. One is the tax lien certificate sale, and the other is a traditional tax foreclosure option. Tax lien certificate sales are attractive as a county tool because they allow us an opportunity to contact folks multiple times in the lead up to a sale. Those collection efforts that are attendant to doing a tax lien certificate sale actually are very productive in terms of getting people on payment plans with the county prior to even reaching the sale date. So they're a very effective means of doing that. They help us ensure that everyone is paying their fair share of taxes. We have limited capacity within the county to do tax foreclosures. We can do about 2,500 right now with current staffing capacity in my office and the prosecutor's office, who actually handles the legal work. As you've seen before, in presentations I've done for council, our actual body of tax delinquencies well exceeds that figure. So the tax lien certificate sale gives us another way to get at that via a partnership with a third party. They're an early intervention tool. The tax lien certificate sales take place early on in the process. We typically use these when folks are just becoming certified delinquent, as opposed to a tax foreclosure, which may happen several years down the line when the meter has been running. Our interest on those is compounding. We charge interest twice a year. There are attendant fees for being late. Again, the meter just keeps running on all of those. So in a tax lien certificate situation, the interest charges are simple interest. So it's actually, in some respects, better to get folks early on in a simple interest environment versus doing them later in the process where the delinquency has been accumulating with all those additional attendant fees and what have you as well. They produce immediate revenue to us. At the close of the tax sale, the county is made whole for all of the delinquency that is offered. So that money then flows out to our school districts, police and fire, the Health and Human Services levy, Tri-C, all of the things that property taxes support in the county. So they're an attractive tool for us for our partner communities as well. And we require, as a part of our tax lien certificate sale process, that payment plans be offered by our third-party partners so that folks can get on a payment plan and pay that back over time. So they're not hit with an immediate need to pay that money back, right away. So we have built safeguards in. As I'd mentioned, we did have some conversation leading up to this point, as it has been since 2020, so we wanted to make sure that we did craft a pool in a way that was thoughtful and engage the community effectively. We started having internal discussions about doing this in spring of 2024 with my office, the land bank, and the prosecutor's office, again, thinking about the whole of our tax delinquency portfolio and which portions might be best served to be in a tax lien certificate sale, which should be enforced via foreclosure, and what other mechanisms we might use just to do general outreach work. So those conversations started in the spring of '24. In the summer of '24, we started to engage our external stakeholders a little bit more aggressively. Have had several ongoing conversations with VAPAC about updating their 2015 recommendations, the result of our 2018-19 sales, and how we could update those standards to capture what's happened in the intervening period with respect to property values and some other things, which I'll go over shortly. So we developed kind of a plan there. Last fall, we sent a letter to folks who were likely to be included in a tax certificate sale. So that was actually early outreach. We had not in previous sales done that year in advance outreach to folks. So we've actually had a number of people come and get on payment plans as a result of our delinquent tax outreach team's efforts over the course of the past year leading up to now. We continued to conduct stakeholder meetings throughout the winter. And then in the spring, we issued an informal RFP to potential purchasers of tax lien certificates. There are a handful of those entities that do that work around the state presently, and we reached out to them individually as well as issued the public call for responses. We reviewed those responses this summer and selected a tax lien purchaser, which is NAR Solutions. And I have with me Dawn Hoosier from NAR Solutions today. I'll be asking her to share a little bit more about them and their approach in just a moment. But that's how we arrived at this point, fall of 2025. Our plan at this juncture is to move through the formal approval process with council, and our plan is to schedule the lien sale on or about November 14th. I mention that to you because I know that we have an intention to do 3 readings, which we think is important given the nature of this work and the community's experience in the past with tax lien certificate sales. We're proceeding in parallel with noticing and what have you to make sure that people are prepared for that November 14th date. That date is important because if we wait longer than that, we get into the holidays, and it's really not our preference to do enforcement action over the holiday season. If we wait past the holidays, we're then into our regular tax collection cycle in January and February. So really, this is the window, October, November, in which a tax lien certificate sale can be conducted effectively, given just the pressures elsewhere that we're beholden to under our collection processes. So having said that, I would like to call Dawn forward at this point to share a little bit with you about NAR, where they're working and what they're doing in this space. Do you have a question first?
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to ask some questions before we go through the next item or subject. So how many potential taxpayers may be subject to this?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, I'm planning to cover that in a minute.
Oh,
So
okay.
if I
Okay,
can
I'll
wait
hold off.
on that, yeah, thank you.
So I think we can cover this here is how many people, how many companies or law firms responded to the RFP?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, we had 5 responses to the RFP. NAR Taxis, a group called FIG, which was our initial purchaser, Adair Asset Management, which is another entity based in Omaha, Nebraska, and a 5th group called Tower Capital Management that's based in New Jersey and operates largely out of Florida. So
Were there any law firms that responded, and were they open to respond with this RFP?
through the chair to the councilwoman, it was a publicly issued document. Law firms typically don't do this work directly. Generally speaking, they support the work of the purchasers, and the firms engage law firms to do that on their behalf. So Don, I'm sure, can speak to the firms that they intend to utilize.
Because in the past, we had
legal
law
work.
firms actually responding, and I believe we did in the past.
Through the chair to the council, when we had an entity locally
Yes.
that helped us as a third-party contractee.
okay.
That was a little bit of a different thing. It wasn't tax lien certificates per se. They were just
Okay.
doing delinquent tax outreach work
see.
effectively. And we have had local firms that have supported the work of these
Okay.
tax
All
lien
right, thanks.
purchasers in the past. But
Okay.
yeah, we'll cover that shortly
Okay,
as well.
thank you.
So with that, Don, do you want to come forward? I'm
Brad,
sorry.
give me 1 second.
Yeah, yes, sir. I
Councilman
apologize.
Kelly?
Yes, sir.
Go for it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Explain to me about the $40 million amount that's in this resolution.
Through the chair to the councilman, that is a little bit of a moving target. The reason we chose 40 million is as of the date of the resolution's drafting, we believed that would be the maximum amount that we could potentially offer for sale at this point. So, you know, we're going to come in under that. I'm going to cover that in a little bit as well. So that was the reason we chose that figure. It's an amount not to exceed, so we knew we weren't going to go over 40. We're going to come in under that. We probably in future years will be coming back to council to say in this coming year we anticipate X dollars. It will be well less than that in all likelihood because again we have a 5-year backlog at this point effectively. In which we haven't been conducting tax lien sales. So my assumption is that this will be the high water mark in terms of our dollar amount and parcel amount that are involved in the sale
I
process.
think my question on it, are we paying somebody $40 million to do this?
It's a great question. Thank you, and I appreciate it. No, this is a revenue generating contract, so we're not actually paying them directly. That $40 million is money to come into the county coffers to then be distributed in support of our levies and in support of our local communities.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
One more question from Councilman Jones, and then we're going to bring in our guest from NAR.
Thank you. So Brad, what was the procurement method used for this agreement?
Thank you, Councilman. Through the chair, the procurement method was an informal RFP. We chose to go in that direction because it's a revenue-generating activity, and also because we wanted to have a little greater control over the process in terms of being able to vet our respondents effectively for, you know, lived experience by other communities, experience in the state of Ohio, various other kind of enforcement mechanisms, those sorts of considerations.
What occurs to me, though, is $40 million because of the dollar amount to use an informal process at that dollar amount. What was the rationale? Well, you kind of said the rationale, you want to control over the process. But it's still $40 million, an informal process. When we did this before COVID, and you touched on it already, back then we had an alternative process. What is the reason for the change, though, from the way we did it before to now?
Yeah, through the chair to the councilman, I can't speak to prior process. I will tell you that the process that we utilized here was on advice of our purchasing team. So our internal fiscal office purchasing agents kind of guided us through that. So knowing, you know, all those considerations I'd listed out before and what we were thinking we wanted to do here, that was the path they chose, recommended that we follow.
Councilman Simon's point, the number of bidders that came out, you said there were 5 who actually bid on.
That's right.
If I understand, as this process was going on, there were actually 2 informal bids. One initial bid, and then it was maybe redone.
Through the chair to the councilman, that's not my recollection of the process.
I don't know, I'm asking.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case. I'm pretty, thinking back about the process this spring, I'm pretty confident we issued it once. There was a long kind of runway here in terms of when it was issued and when we actually issued a choice of vendor. And I think part of the thought process there was we wanted to give people time to consider, to go through and look at properties in the community. You know, we did allow a little bit of flexibility toward the end just because there was a little bit of a hiccup in the response process. So the folks who were supposed to get the bid as an initial matter didn't, and we wanted to, for fairness purposes, offer them the opportunity to catch up and take a look. So we did extend that by about a week, 10 days. If that's what you're referring to, there was a little extension that we tacked on to the end, but.
Maybe that's what it was. I heard that that's what it was. If not, I see Mike's here, maybe he knows or knows for certain.
Yeah, I'm having talked myself through that. That was if you're talking about a double process, that was it. We added an extension to the end again because they were on the bid list, did not for whatever reason actually receive the RFP, and so we wanted to give them the opportunity to participate. That was NAR, the one we ended up selecting.
They were in the first process. I'm sorry, you just said it, but I need to repeat it.
No, that's okay. NAR was is the firm we selected. They were the ones who needed the extension because they didn't receive the initial document from us.
Not again for that purpose. Okay. Okay.
Sounds like a great segue. We can invite our guest from NAR up to speak more to the numbers and everything else.
All right, thank you. Am I on her slide, Sharon, or? Yeah, great, thank you.
Good morning, council members. My name is Dawn Hoosier. I'm with NAR Ohio. I'm actually based out of Cincinnati, Ohio, so I'm an Ohio girl, born and raised. I am the Chief Director in charge of business development and government relations with our company. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come here and speak with you today. We are looking forward to the opportunity to work with your county. Our business, NAR, we've been in business for about 29 years, one of the longest standing tax lien companies in the country. We do specialize in markets in which we actually service the tax liens. Most tax liens in the country are serviced directly by counties versus there are some markets such as Kentucky and Ohio in which the tax lien purchaser actually services the delinquency as well. And so we are uniquely qualified to do so because of our experience in the market. We currently work in 25 counties in the state, more than any other tax lien investor in the state. And in particular, we work with all the largest markets: Hamilton County, Stark County, hopefully Cuyahoga County now, Hamilton County, Franklin County, and a number of others. Any of the largest counties that currently conduct sales, we work with directly to purchase and service those delinquencies. We do handle all of that work in-house, so we do not outsource any of that work. We manage the entire portfolio in-house. Some of the advantages to us doing so is that we're able to work with people based on their circumstances. We don't use algorithms or we don't have to answer to investors. We utilize our own capital to invest, and in turn, we're able to work directly with property owners based on their circumstances. Our core values really are built on integrity, transparency, and in community engagement. In regards to Cuyahoga, our plan would be to engage with all of the community leaders to determine the best way to create an outreach program to connect with property owners, to get them to then reach out to us so we can set them up on payment plans and help them to resolve their delinquency. Our number one goal is to help property owners resolve their delinquency. As Brad mentioned, one of the biggest benefits to conducting a tax lien sale is obviously the revenue that it brings in due to the noticing that the counties send. But the secondary benefit is that the county is able to remove the delinquency from their books and move it to a third party such as ourselves, which in turn actually allows property owners to pay their current taxes with the county and avoid compounded interest versus the simple interest that we charge. So there is some benefit financially to property owners. The other thing that we really pride ourselves on is working with property owners to get on payment plans and helping them stay engaged in that process. Because we have proprietary systems and processes, we're able to, for instance, if a property owner misses a payment, we're able to engage with them immediately when they miss that payment to try to help them stay on track, versus generally what we found is if you don't engage with those property owners very quickly after they miss that payment, then sometimes it'll just fall off their radar. So we're really diligent in that process. But with that said, we also are going to work collaboratively with Brad's office to make sure that any noticing that we send to a property owner is vetted by the county and through his office, and that it's approved through them, and that we stay in constant communication with his office, including quarterly meetings as well as monthly reporting. We also have a track record of working with legal aid, working with the community action groups. Actually, in Hamilton County, legal aid sent notices out to the property owners in which we purchased the tax liens to try to make sure that we have another point of contact that sort of legitimizes us as a business, because it's, as you can imagine, some property owners will think this is a scam or something like that. So through the noticing that the county does, as well as through engaging community leaders, we're able to motivate property owners to reach out to us quickly, because that keeps costs down for them as well. We also would plan to work with VAPAC to make sure that we're in alignment with what their goals are, and to make sure that we're ensuring that properties don't deteriorate, and that we're making sure to protect the value of properties within your community. Our goal is ultimately is to have a positive impact, to provide revenue to the community, to help property owners, given whatever circumstance they have. On a personal note, both of my parents were junior high educated, and had COVID hit, we wouldn't have been able to pay our property taxes. And so I understand how people can hit hard times and how, they need help. And so our goal is to help people through this process and make sure that we can help them resolve their delinquency while staying in their homes. And we are very sensitive to that. I think that's all I have. Do you have any questions?
Councilman Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do you have a dedicated group that's going to work with Cuyahoga County that, or is it just going to be your system-wide?
That's a great question. So we will have a local representative here. We'll also have an office in Cuyahoga County. So we will have a dedicated local presence, as well as actually we plan on hiring 3 additional staff members, 2 of which we have accepted offers from now that will be specific to Cuyahoga County. So yes, sir, we do.
Great, thank you.
I think I missed it. How many potential resident taxpayers are going to be subject to, did I miss the number?
Through the chair to the councilman, you didn't miss the number, but
Okay.
I can give you the spoiler now. It's around 3,000 parcels that we're looking at this point. The breakdowns are by district and whatnot are further on in the presentation. But
Oh,
the-
so you're
the
going
bulk
to
is
come
around
back with that? I'm sorry.
That's right.
And while Brad is there, if I might, we found it, it was a 2-page, was it, the page, top of page 2, it states that there were 2 informal bids, so there was 2 informal bids.
On the page 2 of my presentation. Okay, I can't speak to that. Maybe I
31, I'm
listed
sorry,
it.
page 31, box number 2, at the top of the page.
I don't think I have the document you're referring to, Councilman, but to answer the question, the 2-part process was the extension. That's what that's referring to.
Same thing, okay.
Oh, yeah, okay, thank you.
I did have a quick question from our guest from NAR. And so you said APAC, is that the group, and Brad kind of briefed me, is this the group that makes sure that the collection process is going to be in compliance and equitable and all other good stuff?
Thank you, Chair Member. So VAPAC is your community
VAPAC.
group that really focuses on vacant and abandoned properties within the community. And so obviously they're very sensitive to this process because they want to make sure that tax liens do not cause vacancy or abandonment. And so our goal is to work with them to ensure that that is not the impact that we cause. And so through doing so, we would work with the community leaders that they work with to ensure that we're reaching out to property owners to make sure that they know to stay in their homes and that we will work with them to resolve the delinquency.
You guys have a reporting process back to the county on how's everything going?
Yes, sir. So we have an online portal, so we have complete transparency both to your property owners as well as to the county, in which they can see real-time information about their specific accounts, as well as Brad's office has access to that portal so they can pull reports at the portfolio level as well as see individual accounts. We also will send monthly reports, and we will have quarterly meetings with the treasurer's office.
Nice, and this might be a Brad question. What resources does the county have if the collection process gets abusive in any way? Like, let's say we enter into this agreement and NAR isn't doing what they said they were going to do. What resources do we have?
It's a good question. So, Mr. Chair, it's a contractual arrangement, so there are termination provisions that would constitute breach, and we would seek to sever the agreement at that point.
Appreciate it, Brad. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, to Brad, just sorry about that. Yeah, I see 3,069 properties
Right.
in your presentation. Okay.
Chair, if there's a default on the payment plan, what other options do they have? Do they get a second chance, or what's available?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yes, we provide a 60-day cure period. So basically what we would do to speak to the outreach, if someone does miss a payment, is the day after they miss the payment, we would reach out to them right away and let them know, hey, friendly reminder, you missed your payment, please get caught up. We would give them to the next payment to try to get caught up, and then we would remind them again. We do, however, let them re-enter into a payment plan if they contact us within that 90-day time frame. So yes. And generally, if someone is an owner-occupied property, obviously, we're even more sensitive to that and try to work with people to make sure that we can let them re-engage in a payment plan. Yes.
And if I can add to that just briefly, that was one of the provisions that we added to the contract. And to speak to our process a little bit, we did have legal aid review it prior to, issuing a final kind of draft agreement. That was one of the provisions legal aid asked us to include in there, was a cure period to make sure that our residents are taken care of in that way. And to just respond a little bit more about who VAPAC is, because people may not be familiar with that organization. That was an ad hoc group that came out of the housing crisis, but it's made up of members from the city of Cleveland, Western Reserve Land Conservancy, Community Neighborhood Partnership, Legal Aid, basically all of the housing advocacy folks in Cuyahoga County gathered together to form that organization, and they're celebrating, I think they're celebrating 20 years this year, so they've been kind of a long time advocacy organization in the community, so thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair, death and taxes, right, as they say. So I took a little bit of a read through the Ohio Revised Code surrounding this particular type of work, 5721. As I'm reading this, and I feel like I'm going to speak clearly, and hopefully this doesn't offend anybody, but essentially this is just a debt collection company, correct? Instead of it being consumer debt, this would be tax debt, right? So my question is, to clarify those terms, Ohio law incentivizes companies to essentially do this type of work. It's attractive to investors. These tax debts are purchased in bulk. So my question is, much like consumer debt, there's often an opportunity to negotiate those rates down, or whatever the debt is down. Is that the same in this particular case? So if someone had a $10,000 tax debt and they're in this particular process the year after the tax lien has been sold, can they negotiate that down? That's my first question.
Through the chair to the councilman, I appreciate the question. Taxes are actually differentiated from consumer debt in that way. We do not have the capacity to negotiate the tax amount down. I can't speak to Don's process on the interest rate side, but certainly with respect to the tax debt, that's not a negotiable term.
Even after it's been sold to a third-party vendor?
Right. That's right. Again, because they are standing in the shoes of the county, so it's as though they were the county to enforce that.
Okay. My second question is then, I'm hearing language that's vague in terms of, well, we give preference to homeowners, people that are still in their homes. Is there a separate process for homeowners that are still in the property as opposed to vacancies or land property?
Well, if I may, I think I might cover that in a couple of slides. So I have a little bit more about what's in the contract itself and the differentiation between owner occupants and non-owner occupants that may answer that question. If I don't answer it, I'm certainly happy to circle back on it if I can. So.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
That being said, Brad, we're going to let you proceed with the presentation.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Okay. So just to give some highlights of the draft agreement, as the term is 2025 through 2027, we wanted to give ourselves some stability, and it's better for our office and for the taxpayer if they're working with one entity as opposed to multiple entities. So there's some rationale for doing a longer agreement in that respect. You see here that there's a differentiation between single-family properties and other properties. It's 6% and 11%. So we, in the course of this process, emphasized that we wanted to treat our owner occupants with special consideration. This is one of the most attractive parts about NAR's response to our request for proposals. They broke these out separately, just to give you a sense. The statutory maximum rate on these liens in the state of Ohio is 18%. When counties started doing tax lien sales, most were at that rate. Since we've gotten a little more savvy and started to negotiate down, our last sale in 2018-2019 was at 12% across the board. So in both respects, this is a lower rate, and in the case of owner occupants, a significantly lower rate of interest that's being charged. So other pieces here that are of note, all liens are being purchased at par. There's no discount or premium. It is often the case that when you're doing a bulk purchase, some entities will include less attractive parcels, for lack of a better phrase, and offer those at a lower rate. Our concern with that is that that could encourage less consumer-friendly debt collection practices. And conversely, premium rates are fraught also because you're charging more interest in some cases on these properties just because they happen to be in an attractive neighborhood. That's not something that we wanted to do either. So they're just at the par rate. We're requiring our provider to provide payment plans, as I mentioned before. There are no foreclosures under the agreement while payment plans are in effect and being followed. So as long as someone is staying current on their payment plan with a purchaser, there won't be a foreclosure enforcement. We mentioned the cure period a moment ago. We do have dedicated service phone numbers and a local mailing address for our folks. So it's important that they have a local point of contact, and that's something that we were aggressive about encouraging to be part of the agreement. The agreement provides real-time access to payment information and eyes on the system. So our office will be able to see the last time the taxpayer was contacted by NAR, notes about how that conversation went, where they are in their payment process. So we'll be able to provide kind of more holistic customer service to our taxpayers as a result of that. We are requiring, the earliest foreclosures would be at 1 year after purchase, and we have provisions that limit attorney's fees. That's another question that commonly gets asked in this setting. Because they employ private counsel to do their enforcement activity, we wanted to put a cap on that as well. So all of that is to say, those provisions were informed again by review from VAPAC and Legal Aid, and we feel that the agreement puts us in a pretty good position with respect to some of those things. So I do want to, this next slide I think is important as well. This is what we're excluding from the sale. So part of our conversation in 2018, 2019, VAPAC recommended that we avoid certain whole neighborhoods, that we limit the dollar value of properties that are being, of properties where a tax lien certificate is being sold, the amount of the delinquency, some of those sorts of things. So we've preserved all of that and updated them for current terms. The RFP excludes parcels that are on the homestead exemption. So if there's a homestead exemption on the parcel, it will not be included in the sale. We expanded owner-occupant exemptions to include owner-occupants in equity zones. And just as a reminder to members of council, equity zones were approved in 2022 by the executive at that time for the purpose of economic redevelopment. My next slide is a map of those. But those equity zones track very closely the 1940 redlining map. They also include provisions about poverty rates, health outcomes, and those sorts of things. So that was the way that we're trying to protect more vulnerable communities from inclusion in sale. We updated the property values from $50,000 in the 1819 sale to $100,000. So it's got to be at least $100,000 in value. The delinquency has to be at least $1,000. It was previously $500. No properties that are on a current tax delinquent contract will be offered, and no properties that are vacant or abandoned will be offered. That did not make the slide, but that's another important provision as well. So we've done a lot of work to kind of do the front end work, and if we did it correctly, exclude a lot of sensitive parcels from inclusion. So just as a reference point, again, this is what the equity map looks like. It covers roughly 26% of the county's landmass area and roughly 46% of the population. This is on the county's website. I won't belabor that point other than to reference it here. The provisions of precisely which properties are in an equity zone or how these were determined are listed out on the website. It is by census tract, so you can see that on the map there as well. So kind of this is the buried lead, I suppose, for most of you. This is the properties that are included or proposed to be included in the tax lien sale pool. Of the parcels that we started out with, we would have had roughly 5,374 parcels and $68 million that could have been included had we not done all of the exclusions I just went through. That exclusion process brought that number down to 3,069 parcels and $33 million. Of those, roughly 2/3 are in that 6% owner-occupant space, and the remainder are on the 11%, either investment properties or commercial properties. So that's the pool. The way that that breaks down by the county, we had our GIS folks put together some slides, and I apologize that this is tiny. I can forward you to the larger maps where you, after the conclusion of today's meeting. But this map shows the potential distribution. Again, this is the all-in list. If we break that down by where these properties actually are, this map is that 6% tranche, or the single family folks. You will see that there are some in equity zones, and that is because those properties have been flagged by our office as either known or likely investment properties. The research that VAPAC has done has shown that roughly 40-some% of the properties in some of these communities are owned by out-of-state investors. So that's reflected on the map here as well. I have district-by-district breakouts of these numbers, which I will not belabor the conversation with here. You will see that they are listed on the map itself, but again, it's tiny, so if it serves the body, I would prefer to have those conversations one-on-one. We can certainly get into it if you'd like to, but those are listed out there. This next map is that 11% tranche. Again, it roughly tracks the same sorts of communities. These dollar figures are lower, and that's because there are fewer of them. The distributions in terms of council district by council district amounts kind of track where our commercial properties are within the county. So I'll pause there. If you have questions about district by district, I'm happy to get into those now.
Councilman Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can we get something sent to us that I can see?
Sure.
That, to see all these different numbers?
Certainly, I'd be happy to provide that.
Thank you.
Councilwoman.
Just a question on payment plan, 161 parcels that are currently on a payment plan with the county. Is that correct?
That is right, and I believe those are parcels that were on track to default those payment plans by the sale date. So if they've defaulted a payment plan, they're no longer on a current payment plan, they could potentially be included in the sale.
What constitutes a default? Is it what?
Missed payments.
I understand that, but is it missed payment for a day? Is it missed payment for 2 months? What's your definition of one payment will be constituted a default and sent to tax sale collection?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, we do have a separate delinquency policy that's on our website that kind of spells out what our processes are for delinquent payment plans. Folks do have multiple opportunities to be on a payment plan with us. If they miss a payment, they are in default. We typically do that 1 month in arrears. So if they've missed a payment, we're defaulting the subsequent month. And we do offer people the opportunity to get back on a payment plan. So either they get back on a payment plan with us, or they would be eligible for inclusion in the sale. So that number is likely to come down, is what I'm telling you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I saw someplace where the collection firm we're potentially contracting with has more flexibility on helping residents and payment plan and those types of things. How so?
So through the chair to the councilwoman, I would prefer to default to Dawn to answer that question. I will say that with respect to the contract provisions itself, we're requiring them to offer those payment plans, but she can speak to the details as to what their payment plans look like.
But why isn't the county doing that now?
Through the chair to the councilman, can you say more? I'm not understanding
Well,
the
we're
question.
giving an opportunity for the company to engage in opportunity for residents to have different more flexibility with payment. I heard that. So why isn't the county providing that same flexibility that we're going to contract with a third party to provide?
Gotcha. Through the chair to the councilman. So there is a distinction between the payment plans they have once the lien has been sold, which are administered by the third party, and the payment plans that we have for tax delinquency. Again, that's contained in our separate tax delinquency policy. But we have actually expanded the availability of payment plans significantly over the past year or so. Our payment plans now can go out as long as 5 years, so we give people up to 60 months to be on a payment plan with us. Prior to that policy change, the term, the tenure of a payment plan was significantly shorter than that. So we've already kind of built a lot of those things in on our side of the house. And again, our preference, and this is the last slide in my presentation, but our preference is that they get on a payment plan with us. So part of the purpose of doing this is that outreach so that they then have incentive to come to us first. Our payment plans are very flexible, I would say at this point.
So the answer is just our policy.
That's right.
Okay. And before we move on, if I can through the chair, I just wanted to clarify again, and this is to follow up with Councilman Jones' question about the procurement process. I do have a follow-up. I heard you say that you chose a informal process, but I didn't hear the reason why.
Through the chair to the councilwoman, the reason for the informal process, again, in consultation with our purchasing agents within the fiscal office, we wanted to be able to make sure that we were, it's a revenue generating process, which is a distinction from a process where we're paying out. And then the other part, and another set of considerations were around the pool itself and how we were able to analyze that pool. So make sure that we were engaging with entities that were known quantities, that had a track record in the state, that had some of these provisions we've discussed in terms of being willing to be flexible on payment plans, offer cure periods, some of those sorts of things. So rather than doing just a formal payment plan where we might be tied to a potential respondent that didn't meet those criteria, we wanted the additional flexibility.
I think if you had done a formal process, it would have provided more responses. And is it because of time you wanted to expedite that? I'm really confused by this because, you know, we have local vendors, we have local companies that are invested in the community here. And now what we did is made a decision to go with this informal process, which yielded out of state. I know there's a local person from Cincinnati, but now we have out-of-state vendors that are going to be processing and collecting for our residents. And the other formal process would have, I believe, brought in potentially local vendors like we had in the past. So I'm really concerned about the decision about this with such a huge contract of $40 million. I want to know why or who. Are you saying it's fiscal that told you to go through informal process?
Through the chair to the council, and we're part of fiscal.
I know,
So it was, yeah, it
but
was
your
in consult-
boss?
It was
You-
in consultation
is
with
it
our
boss?
purchasing agent in terms of the process. So we say,
okay.
may I? We said what we wanted to accomplish, and I followed advice in terms of how we actually accomplished that. But to speak to the concern about local vendors and other vendors in the space, there are a very limited number of entities that do this work around the state of Ohio. So none of them, to the best of my knowledge, other than NAR, have a local footprint. So that's a consideration as well. There are some that would offer that potentially had they been successful. But NAR actually already has a state of Ohio point. And in terms of Cuyahoga process, again, just a reminder about that other process where previously we engaged a local entity to help us with collection work. That was a separate effort, and that was in a period of time during which we did not have a delinquent tax outreach office in-house that was doing this work effectively for us. So we were engaging a third party to do that rather than doing it in-house. Tax lien certificate sales are a separate tranche.
I appreciate that. So your answer is you did not anticipate any local Cuyahoga vendors, state of Ohio vendors, because you believe there's not too many that would be able to do the work that you wanted done?
I think it's fair to say that we, through the chair to the councilman, that we don't think that there are any local entities that do that. But also, it was published, it was on the website. There was the opportunity for folks to engage had they chosen to do so.
If you didn't think there were too many or none, what would be the harm, what would have been the harm in going through a formal process then to see one or two that might have responded to consider?
Through the chair to the councilman, I appreciate the feedback. That's not the path we did.
What? I'm sorry?
That's just not the process we followed in this particular instance.
Okay, but I want to know why. You said just because you didn't think there were too many that, I guess I want to know why, because we're stuck with 5 responses that are out of state.
Through the chair to the councilwoman, I think I've answered that question previously in terms of our thought process around doing an informal. The 5 that responded are the primary entities that do this work in the state of Ohio.
Did you want to select one of those? Is that what fiscal wanted to do? Is that you knew who was servicing the state of Ohio and you thought, fiscal thought you wanted one of those entities to be able to provide us with this service?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, local kind of understanding of the eccentricities of Ohio's code with respect to tax liens was an important criteria and one of our scoring criteria.
Is there a relationship between the county and the selected vendor and/or the other four that we've have done business with in the past?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, of the vendors that responded, the county has in the past worked with FIG and with taxis. We had no prior relationship with NAR.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Brad, I will say this. I do agree with Councilwoman Simon to a degree that I'm not sure why we didn't do a formal process. I also believe, and I could be wrong, Brad, that the Finch Investment Group is a group from Ohio that does similar work. That being said, Brad, and I know you guys presented to me, and I think you did a phenomenal job, and I appreciate the intentionality when you expressed it to me in our meeting. I think to kind of get in front of a lot of this, you might want to take the extra step and maybe meet with each council person. Because, you know, we all have our differences, but I will say about this council, we will always fight for our residents. And so whenever we're going to sell $40 million of tax liens, we have to be well-informed. And so I know your thought process was once we send a notice that hopefully our residents will join our payment plan. And so I don't think, I know your intent is not to kick people out of their homes, but I think you have to explain that correctly so that we all know. We're looking at these numbers. A lot of these sales are in my district. I think District 9 has the most, and so you have to get in front of a lot of this. I don't know we were joking, Brad, but we talked about sending a letter out maybe from like the prosecutor's office. So that way people will really open the letter and really take it serious. Because if you get a letter from NAR and you don't know what that is, you can think they're scamming you. You don't get on their payment plan, and now you are in jeopardy of losing your home. And so I think the intentionality around the entire process has to be done with great thought and great purpose. And so I appreciate, and I'm going to let you finish your last slide. And if we have any more questions, I appreciate your thoughtfulness. You know, in our meeting, you explained your intentionality. You excluded a lot of homes. I think 6% was the lowest of all the 5 bidders, and so that's why you went with NAR. And so I know you've worked extremely hard on this, and I want to give you your credit. But to the council as a whole, you know, Councilwoman Conwell, who's not here today, who wasn't in our meeting, when she sees this, she's going to fight for our residents. And so just the pre-work to get here, or, you know, even if we pass it out of committee, the months we have until the sale date, I definitely think you need to sit down with each 11 members of council. You could take me off the list now, so the other 10, and let them know what's going to happen, so that we, you know, I don't, me and Sonny are in agreement. You know, I don't agree with everything our county executive does, and I don't think this is purposely to try to get people out their homes. But whenever you're dealing with this level of money, I agree with Councilwoman Simon. I think a formal process, you know, could have been done. And even if you guys used your best ideology to get to this point, you have to explain that to the rest of council. And so those are just my thoughts as the chair. Do we have any? Let's finish your last slide, Brad, and then we're going to open it up for questions.
I just follow up on that.
Go ahead, Councilman.
One, we know your character and your integrity, and none of this is to put a cloud on you in any way. But we've done this long enough when we just ask for transparency, and I feel the frustration. Then I'm like, well, what's on the other side of the frustration? and so so with that, again, it's just one to understand. When you mentioned the fiscal team, in this moment, I'd like to know the names. Who was the fiscal team that guided you? What was the name? Who is it that actually gave you that suggestion?
So a couple of things I'd just like to respond to, Mr. Chair, first, and then Councilman Jones. So thank you for recognition of the intentionality. I want to be clear from the outset that we're on the same side of that in terms of wanting to protect residents. It's our intention to get people on payment plans. That's our preference. We take very seriously our responsibility to be a responsible actor in our community. So this is not purely a chasing the last dollar initiative, and I want to be very clear about that. Just in terms of sharing information, prior to this meeting, we circulated an email to all members of council, so everyone has received the same information you now have, and if we can have one-on-one meetings, I'm happy to do that. We've also shared that information with mayors and managers and with the First Suburbs Consortium, and it's our intention to work with those local community partners to make sure that we're doing outreach directly through those cities as well. So just to give you a sense of the outreach work that we're planning to do in the lead up, everyone's getting a certified letter from us prior to the sale, 30 days. That's required by statute, informing them, that they are likely to have a tax certificate sale or tax certificate offered on their property and that they can get on a payment plan with us. So we're building all of that out to the extent of our ability as well. And it's our intention to make sure that we're as clear and transparent about that as possible. Councilman Jones, with respect to the members of the staff that have given us counsel on how to do those things, I'm not comfortable sharing that only because I don't know the extent to which it's terribly relevant. I don't mean to be evasive in any way. It's just, the way this process works from my side of the desk is that I say, we have these objectives and this process that we want to follow. And then, we follow advice in terms of how we achieve those ends. So I don't feel comfortable sharing that, if that's all right.
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
I'm sorry. When county council asks a question, you need to answer that question. I'm sorry you're uncomfortable, but we are exercising our oversight in a committee meeting in the public, and you just need to answer. It's no secret. There's nothing to hide. Councilman Jones has a question, and it's legitimate. We're doing our job, and I expect you will do your job and respond. If not, we have subpoena powers, which is ridiculous.
That would be ridiculous. That's
This
true.
is ridiculous. So I don't know why you don't want to answer. You're uncomfortable because this is a well thought out, tax lien sale. I don't have any objection to that. But please answer. If I can through the chair, I don't want to usurp your role, but you need to answer. I mean, is Mike Chambers okay? I'm sure that's your boss. Please answer.
I feel that I've answered the question to the extent that I'm comfortable answering it at this point. I'd be happy to talk to you offline if you're interested in doing that. It was not the fiscal officer, but we did follow the fiscal process, and that's how we arrived.
Okay,
at the
Mr.
process
Chair,
that we arrived at.
I'm going to issue a subpoena then. I mean, this is ridiculous. There's a question from my colleague who's been here, and we understand that when we ask questions, we expect answers because we're exercising oversight. And I don't know why you're uncomfortable about talking about who was in the room to determine whether you're going to do a formal.
With respect
or-
to the councilwoman, there was no room, there was no determination. It was simply
Then tell us who it is.
I would like to do this. Here's the process.
We're not going to go offline. We're here as a public, transparent body. And I don't understand your feeling of being uncomfortable about saying who helped make a decision about how we're going to procure this contract.
So I will step in. I agree with Councilwoman Simon. It would help us to know who helped get us to this process. Brad, I'm gonna give you now, how about you send us an email, the entire council, so you can make sure you have the correct names, so we know how did we get here to this $40,000 and who all was involved in the process to
40
$40 million,
million,
excuse
that's
me,
right, yeah.
Councilman Kelly.
And certainly I'd be happy to do that.
$40 million, appreciate it, Treasurer. How do we select NAR, who, what members, what committee, who all was in that process? If you could shoot us an email, so we're all on record, so we all have the same information, that'd be great.
Certainly be happy to do that.
Mr. Chair, it's lucky I'm not the chair because I would not be so benign. But I'll come back publicly with the email to let the residents know who might be watching this or the public understand. I just have to say, when we formed this government, the whole reason everything is streamed, everything is live, everything is open, we did that on purpose. That's intentional. And I'm the one now uncomfortable that you don't want to talk about who
If I
made
may,
decisions.
through the chair to the councilwoman, the rationale for me is that I am an appointee approved by council. I don't feel comfortable throwing line staff under the bus for decision-making processes, so I'm happy to share that information. I just don't feel comfortable doing it in a
Right,
public
you're
forum.
approved by council, exactly.
Correct.
And why you would
That
be throwing.
accountability sits with me.
So
ultimately,
going through the
decision to
chair,
make
Mr.
where
Treasurer,
was mine.
please, you've served on a body before. You need to respect this body. I don't know why you would feel like you're throwing anybody under the bus. Nobody's casting aspersions at this decision. We're just asking a question. And that leads me to believe that there is a reason to be uncomfortable.
Yep, so I will, you don't have to respond, Treasurer. I will say this, I agree with the councilwoman as far as the information for those who are in the room. To our treasurers, I don't want him to misspeak or tell you somebody who was there and get it correctly. So please do your due diligence, Treasurer. Give us the exact name so we're all on one accord. Because I don't want him to say something and then you think he lied to you. So just, if you could send us an email, we'd be good to go.
Happy to do so.
Thank you. We're going to let the treasurer finish this last slide, and we're going to open it up to questions.
Okay, I'm waiting for it to come up. All right, so the final piece is here just to share with you information about how these proceeds are distributed. What's showing on the screen now is the general distribution for tax collections. Roughly 61% of our tax collections flow to school districts, 22% to the county, 12% to municipalities, and 5% to libraries. So of that, the part that council is probably most interested in is the 22% that flows to the county. This next slide is the distribution there. These show the percentages, and I share the percentages because that's really the most important data point. As I'd mentioned before, the $33 million number is a moving number. It is likely to come down as we do our collection efforts, as we work with our local municipalities to get people on payment plans with us. Those will fall out of the sale. You know, this will be the math that we use to distribute those funds to the various funds that the county has. So if we did the full $33 million, it would be roughly $500,000 to the general revenue fund, $166,000 to the bond retirement fund, $1.5 million to HHS, $1.3 million to the health and wellness levy, $1.1 to the Board of Developmental Disabilities, $1 to Metro Parks, $1.6 to Tri-C, and then there's a remainder to the port as well. So again, all of those figures with the significant caveat that they are very likely to change and not the final numbers, but that's roughly what the distribution will look like. And then just the last point I want to make again, it is very much our intention to get as many people on payment plans with the county as possible prior to the sale date. That is our preference. We want people to be on a payment plan with us. So we encourage people to contact us with interest in doing so. They'll have multiple opportunities to do that. They have the opportunity now. We're currently in the midst of a courtesy delinquent tax collection season where we've sent notices out to all of our taxpayers who are newly certified to ask them to do a payment plan with us. We'll be sending that certified letter 30 days prior to sale. That's what the effort is about for us. It's about protecting our community and helping people have meaningful opportunities to engage. So with that, I appreciate the time, and I am absolutely interested in taking more questions if you have.
Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So to go back, you know, you said it takes just about a year of the two different collection periods to get to the point where you're delinquent to where this would start, correct? So one of the statements you made was that, you know, we don't want to throw people out of their houses, correct? So I know I'm going to be asked in a meeting, it says if it takes about a year to get this done, are we starting from a year ago to the point we are right now? And or is it going to be starting with properties from right now going forward?
It's a good question to share with the councilman. The pool of folks that are listed here, these properties, are properties that have missed the February and July payment dates, and also, you know, haven't gotten with us during this delinquent courtesy collection period. So these are all taxes in Ohio are all in arrears. These are all retrospective. There will be another sale. It's anticipated next year under this agreement. Those will be people that would be newly delinquent in that year. So that's. I hope that answers the question in terms
So
of.
it's starting from a year back, retroactive
that's
to
right.
about a year ago,
That's right.
correct? Okay, that's what I need to know. Thank you.
Councilman?
Through the chair, I just had a question about data surrounding collections. So if we have had this process in place in the past, do we have data surrounding how much is collected? Because I'll be honest with you, at the end of the day, like I said, this is nothing but bill collection. At a certain point, if people are at a year delinquent and then you're adding interest to these pieces, they're unable to pay. That's the bottom line, and they're continuously unable to pay. Anybody that's had any type of bill collection understands that it's stacked against the consumer, right? Or it's stacked against the individual. So no matter how many opportunities we give people to pay these things, if you're tacking interest onto these things. So I'm curious if the county has collected any type of data. Let's say we have $100 million in tax delinquency. How much of that was actually collected, even after all those additional fees? No matter how much it's noticed, the debt is still the debt. consumers can't create money out of nowhere, right? So I appreciate the process, but again, I do share some of my colleagues' sentiments that money doesn't grow on trees, so you can't just create money to pay for a debt, especially as it continues to accrue and it continues to collect interest. So in some ways, I understand both sides of this card, but the bottom line is that these organizations are here to make money. They want our debt, right? They want the tax debt. So I think it's worth stating that from a consumer perspective and from our homeowners' perspectives. But do you know if we have any data surrounding that type of historical context or perspective?
Yeah, through the chair to the councilman, my grandma would say you can't get blood from a turnip, right? So I understand fully what you're saying there. Our office has a statutory responsibility to do debt collection, and this is one of the uncomfortable realities of the space that I occupy. So what we try to do in that area is to be as responsible and sensitive as we can in offering people meaningful opportunities to engage before we get to a place where they're losing their home to a tax foreclosure. That is the end of the road that we don't want to get to. That's part of why we created the Taxpayer Assistance Program that you all are aware of and approved, and I appreciate that very much. It's why we've expanded the availability of delinquent tax payment plans to cover 60 months or 5 years. We're doing what we can with the tools available to us. One of the reasons that tax liens kind of fit in that space is that, as Don referenced before, their interest is simple and ours is compounding. So in many respects, getting them at the early end with simple interest is going to be more in their financial interest than at the back end with compounded interest. But to answer your question directly, we do have data around our tax delinquency collection processes. Our delinquent tax outreach team does a really great job compiling that and tracking it. So I'd be happy to provide, whatever data points you might find helpful.
Any other questions? Brad, I had a couple. How much did the county recover from the last tax lien sale?
That is a great question, Mr. Chairman. I do believe I have it. I don't, unfortunately. I can get that to you after this, though. I have the number of parcels, but not the amount. So I'll get that to you after.
Please. And I'm trying to think of any lasting questions. Treasurer, again, did we explore sending a letter out, like get creative with maybe work with our different offices to send a letter out to make sure that our residents kind of open up? What ways are we? I know we're going to send a letter 30 days before, but just to let people know that, encourage people that they should work with the county instead of letting their, their liens go somewhere else.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excellent question. So I know you mentioned earlier the prosecutor potentially being something that we were brainstorming on. I did have a chance to talk to the prosecutor's office about that. They are not interested in doing that, in part because they want to make sure there's a clear differentiation between tax foreclosure work that they do on behalf of the county and this other tranche, which I understand and respect. So with respect to other offices in the county, no. Having said that, though, our delinquent tax outreach team does a ton of work in that space. We have done mailings at multiple points. As I mentioned before, we're in the midst of a delinquent tax kind of courtesy outreach where we sent several thousand notices out. We're engaging with the city of Cleveland on 12,000 notices and doing community events where we're going into these communities and sitting down with people and, making sure if they qualify for their homestead, they're on it, that they get a payment plan, some of those sorts of things. So we are doing what we can creatively kind of within our sphere. And there's always more outreach we can do, and we're trying to do what we can in that area.
Councilman Slepper?
Just one additional quick question. Are we able to turn this over to the Ohio Attorney General to collect as opposed to a third-party entity?
Through the chair to the councilman, I believe that is a possibility, but I don't think it's something that any other counties in the state engage in, and there's a lot of logistical reasons for that. And the Ohio Attorney General, in some respects, falls with the same limitations that our prosecutors have. There's just a bandwidth issue. So, for any number of reasons, that's not a process folks have engaged in. I do think it is technically allowed in statute. I'd have to look that up to be certain, but the reality is folks don't use that tool. Yeah. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to speak to our collection efforts and what we typically see in terms of success rate. So typically, we see about 76% of our portfolio redeem prior to any litigation action being taken. And of litigation action being taken, we generally only see about 10% of that actually go to any sort of foreclosure sale. And of that, we generally see only about 5% of that actually go through the entire process. So we do statewide have a very good success rate of collecting and working with property owners. And so I just wanted to reassure the council members that we are very proud of that and make sure you understand that we will do our best to work with property owners. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councilman.
Just for the committee's edification, we are being asked in section 2, this is a bid, to approve a bid exemption. This is what this is. This is a bid exemption. And I just want everyone to know that that's what we're looking at here, to approve a procurement exemption, bid exemption. That's correct? That is correct.
Thank you, Councilman.
So I will close this out. I will just reiterate, Treasurer, I think it might be worth the effort because, you know, I will speak for myself. I'm not comfortable making decisions without, you know, all the information. And so, you know, especially to get this, you know, passed through council, I think it might be worth the extra effort to speak with each council person directly so they know how intentional you guys were with this process moving forward. And so if there's no further discussion, I'd like to move for motion to move this item to the next council meeting for second reading.
For 3 readings, correct?
3
Total?
readings, correct, definitely 3 readings.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll make,
A second. All those in favor say aye.
I'm a no.
Aye. The ayes have it. We will note that Councilwoman Simon is opposed. And so this has been approved. Do we have any miscellaneous business?
There's no other matters for consideration,
I
Mr. Chair.
will call this meeting closed.